Good evening. Welcome to Front Page Close-Up. Our guest this evening is Stanley Kurtz, a senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center and the author of the new book, Radical in Chief, Barack Obama and the Untold Story of American Socialism. Stanley Kurtz, welcome to the program. Nice to have you here.
Jamie, thanks so much for having me.
Stanley Kurtz, let me begin first by asking you a few questions, and only a yes or no answer will be required at this stage. Will you cooperate?
No.
Stanley Kurtz, do you allege that Barack Obama is a socialist?
Yes.
Do you allege that Barack Obama has disguised and camouflaged his socialism from the American people?
Yes.
If Barack Obama has disguised his socialism and has camouflaged it, would it be fair to say that he is a deceiver and that he is a liar?
I'm careful using the L word, but I do bring it into play at one point in the book when Obama is talking about his relationship to Acorn during campaign 2008. He says very clearly, the only contact I have had with Acorn is representing them in one legal case. Well, I show with so many documents that that is just not true, that I felt comfortable using the L word.
Okay, so the answer to some degree might be yes to my question.
Yeah, to a larger degree than that. I have no problem saying with only slightly different language that Barack Obama has not been telling the truth to the American people about his political beliefs, and he has disguised them actively.
Okay, so somewhere the answer to my question is that there's a yes somewhere, though somewhat vaguely, right?
It's in there. It's not even all that vague.
Stanley Kurtz, last question before we get into the details. Does Barack Obama want to destroy the United States of America? But I want to qualify this question. I'm not referring to because the left can be very tricky with these things. I'm not referring to the United States of Barack Obama's dreams. I'm not discussing to the, I'm not referring to the United States that Barack Obama envisions in the future of the kind of the United States that he wants to build. I am referring to the United States that exists and has existed since its foundation in terms of free enterprise, capitalism, etc. Does Barack Obama want to destroy the United States?
Well, I wouldn't use exactly that language, but I would say, I know you've asked me not to say it this way, but he wants to transform the United States. And for people who have a certain vision of what the traditional American system is, I could understand how they might view that as a kind of destruction. But I think from his point of view, he wants to positively transform the country, move it towards social justice.
Okay. Let me ask you this then. Let's get into the details. How would you briefly summarize Obama's secret?
Well, Barack Obama, when he was a young man in college and for a number of years after that, was a pretty traditional Marxist socialist. And over time, he was drawn into the profession of community organizing. And the research I did on this book showed me that community organizing as a profession is largely controlled by socialists. But these are socialists who have redefined, in many ways, what socialism actually means. Instead of classic nationalization from above, you might say, the program of modern socialist community organizers is to get de facto control of the economy from below through these community organizations. It's a little untraditional for what socialism has been, but it is a transformation of socialism, and I believe Barack Obama adopted this new modern form of socialism as we see it enacted secretly in community organizing.
Okay, so 1 second. I want to crystallize something for the viewer because it's very interesting. We'll talk a little bit about this later, how the left and socialists in general like to camouflage themselves as being something else. You know, we hear a lot about this, community organizer. I've met a lot of people that refer to themselves as community organizers. It sounds very benign. It sounds like somebody's organizing maybe a hockey game somewhere or, a pastry sale. Crystallize for the viewers exactly what this means, because it's not that benign of a thing to be a community organizer. What exactly is it?
I like pastry, so if they want to sell pastry, I'm buying.
Okay.
But the truth is otherwise. The truth is that community organizers are really political agitators as they see themselves, and they make a point of not advertising their ideology, which overwhelmingly, especially at the higher leadership levels, is socialist. The idea is you go into a community, you find out what's bugging people. Let's say they don't want an expressway that the city wants to build through their neighborhood to be built. So you say, fine, we're going to help you protest this expressway. We're just doing what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But after you build the organization around a campaign against the expressway, you subtly start to turn the people in the neighborhood toward the direction of, say, reforming America's banking system
Right.
in ways that a socialist might want to do.
So Stanley, what you are referring to is what you discuss in the book, and you use the word stealth socialism. Please explain this. In other words, there is a camouflaged attempt here to bring about socialism, but pretending that one is not bringing it about.
That's right, Jamie, and I want to make it clear that this is not just a surmise that I'm coming up with. I got into the archives of some very important community organizations that Barack Obama was closely connected to. And when you read these archives, these community organizers who write extensively for the public and never mention socialism, but amongst themselves, they're talking about Marx, they're talking about Lenin, they're talking about Mao, and they're talking about ways to gradually move America in the direction of socialism. But they're very clear that you shouldn't advertise that fact. You shouldn't tell the people you're organizing where you're actually coming from politically.
But this is fascinating in the sense that, look, I've dealt with the left my whole life. There's such a mental illness involved here, but at the same time, a very shrewd tactic. On the one hand, they deny who they are, but they're pursuing certain, like for instance, I'll give you an example. I've met some community organizers, quote unquote, and they'll pretend they're doing very, very benign, helpful things. And then I'll ask them, what do you think of Che Guevara? What do you think of Fidel Castro? What do you think of Mao Zedong? The answers that they give are supportive of these mass murderers and of these communists. If you're a supporter of Castro, if you're a supporter of Che Guevara, if you hate capitalism and want to destroy it, but at the same time, they don't want to be called socialists, and they get upset when people like you point at somebody that is a socialist. How do you explain this phenomena that the left pursues a certain agenda, but yet simultaneously denies that it's pursuing it?
Well, Jamie, it's not as though the left has not tried at various points to come out openly with its socialism. There were a lot of people from the Students for the Democratic Society, the radical organization that was at the center of agitation in the 60s, who believed that America was on the verge of a revolution. They were fairly open about their socialism at that time. There were groups of community organizers that say, oh, let's forget about all this stealth business and go out and tell people what the correct political line is from a Marxist socialist point of view. And what they found time after time was that it was a disaster, that American workers wanted nothing to do with socialism, and continually they were forced back into this stealth strategy because being open and honest simply didn't work.
Okay, just a second. Now, we're going to get more into Obama here, but I want to just try to get more into the psychological aspect here, because this is really something else. If these community organizers and socialists know that the majority of people are against socialism, and therefore they have to use another word to describe what they're doing, how do they rationalize that the majority of people are against it? Do they think that the masses are ignorant and that they have to kind of trick them into accepting socialism? Is that how it works?
Well, I think there's a classic Marxist thinking would be that the people who are advantaged in society are oppressing the people who are disadvantaged, and naturally they don't want to change things. People who are disadvantaged have false consciousness of various kinds. That would be the formal Marxist term. They don't understand their true interests, and it's going to take time and an organizer who understands the ins and outs of socialism to bring the truth out into the open. So you have to work gradually, you have to educate people over time, but it's worth doing it even if the public is against you at first, because from a socialist point of view, true justice is on the other side of all this, and eventually people will see the truth.
Okay, we're going to have to go for a break. This is our first part with Stanley Kurtz. We're going to be back tomorrow evening to talk with the author of Radical in Chief about who schooled Obama.